Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, WaterSense Homes version 1.2, a tool for building water-efficient homes.
Thank you, Shantaria. So today on the WaterSense Homes version 1.2, our speaker today is Ola Cano, and she is an environmental engineer in the Homes program at the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's, which is the EPA, WaterSense program. She is involved in the development and implementation of the WaterSense Homes specification and certification system. Through this program, the EPA aims to promote water-efficient systems and practices in the residential sector. Ms. Cano holds a BA in Architectural from Florida International University and a Master's of Science in Environmental Engineering from Michigan Technological University. At this time, we would like to turn the presentation over to Ms. Ogla.
Great. Thank you very much, Vicki, for that introduction, which saves me an introduction. So thank you again for inviting us and for always thinking of our program. We're always happy to collaborate and offer any technical assistance as we can. And I offer that also to any of the participants on the webinar to please reach out and just let us help you and support the designing and building of water efficient systems in your project in any way that we can. So with no further ado, we will go ahead and jump into the presentation. Like Vicki mentioned, today we're going to be talking about WaterSense Homes version 1.2 program, which is a certification program for single family and multifamily residential projects. And I'll also have a brief introduction and some insight into a version we'll be rolling out soon, which is under a pilot program, which is version 2.0. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that entails and what the updates and changes would be like. So just to get started, what is WaterSense? Essentially, WaterSense is a voluntary program, meaning that even though we are part of a regulatory agency, this is not a mandate. So the public and jurisdictions are welcome to participate in a voluntarily basis, but no one, it is not under any law, under any jurisdiction. It's also a very simple way for consumers to identify and, of course, use products that are WaterSense labeled, and thus making water efficiency relatively simple at the home and building level. Where can you find WaterSense? So we label plumbing products, essentially, is how the program was first started. So we started with toilets that use 20% less water than the standard. We also do faucets, bathroom faucets and accessories that use 30% less. Shower heads, which are also at 20% less, and flushing urinals, which use 50% less. And so that's the urinals are really our largest savers in our category of products. And we also look at outdoor irrigation products. So weather-based irrigation controllers are also installed and labeled by the program. We also have some professional certification programs for outdoor irrigation professionals, and the most recent program is our Homes program, which is the program that we will be talking about today. As a sense of introduction, I wanted to just showcase this map of the country, which essentially shows the population growth for 2030 that is expected. And why you see at this key, we see that most of the country is going to be experiencing growth until then. And therefore, there'll be more demand on our water system and our infrastructure. Unfortunately, there hasn't been that much investment in our actual infrastructure. And so we know that water efficiency is going to be one of the primary points for many jurisdictions as we move forward. We also expect that many of our states will experience shortages that are non-drought related. And so installing, building, and designing homes to be water efficient is a proactive way to sort of minimize the impact of that type of growth. Another thing that we like to do in terms of homes and promoting our program is making the link of energy into water and what that means for efficiency as a whole and sustainability. And really just having the public understand that it's not just about water. Electricity and energy have a lot to do with how we get our water, where it comes from, the way that it's treated, delivered, and essentially taken off our lots. So we like to make that link, especially because we realize that the energy industry is a very important one, and that there are a lot of financial resources that are given to the energy industry that may lack in the water industry. And so leveraging that and making that link has become a really important part for us. This is actually, in terms of making the link between energy and water, a really interesting research or program that was done in California. And what this shows is two really interesting things. Is first, it measures the way that California had to handle some of their drought. And so when they instituted more aggressive mandatory water conservation measures, it showed that it did work, and that in addition to saving hundreds of gallons of water, it actually saved more energy than some of their energy efficiency programs had in the previous years. And so this was kind of a really good way for us to showcase that there is a very feasible and tangible link between water and energy. Not only did the water conservation measures save more energy, but they also do so about a quarter of the cost. So that really says that actually for some time, saving water is one of the most cost-effective ways to save energy. So what does that mean? For the rising cost for water and sewer, it means higher utility bills. It means larger connection fees for the builders. The increased use of outdoor water restrictions would look like having designated watering days, no new planting allowed, some water budget-based billing, and no outdoor water use. And these are already some strategies that we're all pretty familiar with in certain parts of the country, but certainly strategies that we start to see happen in new places. And then, of course, more stringent codes with more efficient plumbing products, and also strict permitting and development policies. And we see building codes in jurisdictions such as California and also in Denver that are adopting some more stringent water efficiency codes, and that have included some of WaterSense's guidelines into their own plumbing code. With that, I'd like to talk a little bit more about sort of our timeline and how the program has progressed and evolved since 2009, which is when our first version of the program was launched. And so it was, then we moved on. In 2012, we moved on to version 1.1, where we did minor revisions, which was to remove one of the two options for the outdoor requirements. We used to have a requirement in terms of turf grass, which we don't anymore. And then we also modified some requirements around the shower heads and the water-based irrigation controllers. And those are reflected, obviously, in our most current version. Then we have version 1.2, which was updated in 2014, and that included just minor changes, removing the irrigation partners, which used to be, we used to certify them directly through the program, but we have now changed into a model that actually certifies independent programs that then provide the certification to the individuals. And then we have version 2.0, which was just drafted, or the notice of intent was made public in 2017, and we have been working for version 2.0 or on version 2.0 since then. And it has gone through various rounds of public comment and reviews. And now in 2018, it was actually mandated by Congress that we review all of our certifications, including our product and our home certifications. And so we were kind of ahead of the game in that sense. I'm sorry, I'm just going to go back. So that was a WIA, which was the mandate by Congress. And then the final draft of version 2.0 was published in 2019. And just now, as we speak, we are starting to roll out a pilot program of version 2.0, which, like I mentioned, we'll talk about a little bit towards the end. So this is just, I won't go into much detail on this slide, but just a kind of visual shot of the type of products where you can find the WaterSense label on. And many of them are comparable or the same as standard in terms of cost as standard products. And they also perform just as well. All the products are third-party certified, and they all go through rigorous testing specifically for performance. Then we move into the WaterSense labeled homes. So the criteria for obtaining the label on homes is any single family house or townhouse, and then also residential units in multifamily buildings that are 3 stories or less. The caveat with the multifamily is that we do require that each building is certified rather than the entire building. Each unit is certified rather than the entire building. So we do look at each unit to make sure that each unit is meeting each requirement. So why build WaterSense labeled homes? Well, we found as the program has evolved and started with products, we found that it was important to not only offer product solutions sort of at the endpoint or user endpoint solutions, but also to make it a whole house building science approach where we look at how the water is being distributed through the home and how that water distribution system is impacting both the performance and the life of these products. Naturally, convenience, efficiency, and confidence that a homeowner who has a WaterSense labeled home is assured that their home is more efficient than the standard, that they are having an impact on water use. And one of the bigger points also in terms of water use is outdoor water use. And so there are requirements in our certification that allow for guidance and in terms of the type of irrigation and the time of landscaping that is used. And I think it's, yes. And then the ability to co-brand with WaterSense. So there are other partner programs that we have or sister programs that we have with EPA or other green building products or certification programs that are regional. And so those tend to align really well with the requirements that are required for the WaterSense certification, allowing for our certification to be seamless when builders are working towards any other green or sustainable certification. So now we're going to jump into a little bit more detail about what the requirements are and what that looks like for a home builder. So these are the various components of a WaterSense labeled home. So we start here with the WaterSense labeled products, which are required to be in every home that is certified by WaterSense. And the reason why that's done is because the products have already gone through the process of testing and of certification. And so we are sure that by just installing WaterSense labeled products, we know that they're going to perform well, and we know that they're going to be at least 20% more efficient than any standard product. Then we look at the hot water distribution, and one of our requirements is that hot water is delivered to the tap at a more efficient and a more timely fashion than that of the standard home. And so we do have requirements in terms of timing and the amount of water that can be flushed out before you actually see a 10-degree temperature difference. We also, another big component is the leak prevention and service pressure. So we like to, or we require that there are no leaks in any of the WaterSense certified homes, and that the service pressure is appropriate. Plumbing fixtures, WaterSense plumbing fixtures are designed to perform at its best at 60 psi. That doesn't mean that it has to be exactly 60 psi, but the range is usually between 50 and 75 for great performance. But we do, one of the requirements for the homes is to have that pressure set to 60. And then when we step outdoors, we look at smart landscaping. So we're looking at things such as plant typology, zones, hydro zones, and then of course irrigation systems or the lack thereof, and what that means or what type of requirements that would require. And finally, third-party certification. That means that we are not the ones that are certifying the homes, we as an EPA, but rather on-site WaterSense Homes verifiers. Verifiers, just for the sense of context, are akin to energy raters. And so, and really energy raters are usually also verifiers. So they essentially play those two roles. And it's usually very seamless for them to both certify, if anyone's familiar with the HERS score, to certify homes with to Energy Star, and also go through the process of basically some of our other sister programs at EPA. So we have had some modifications to our outdoors, which we'll discuss in more detail. These are just the three components that make up most of our indoor requirements, and then leak and service pressure obviously also affect the outdoors as well as landscaping. And of course, we like to always say that, you know, we work together with our sister programs, which are Energy Star, also which is also under EPA, as well as the folks at Indoor Air Plus, also at EPA. So this is what the our checklist looks like, and I do apologize if it's not very readable. You can always go to our website, and I can make a note of maybe providing a link through the chat here at the end. And this is essentially is just step by step of all the requirements for certification. So some of the simple things that we're going to look at that we call, air quotes, low-hanging fruit. Leaks, if we're dealing with new construction, these are relatively simple and should be simple to identify if there are any leaks. So we expect to see no leaks, no loss in pressure throughout the home. Other low-hanging fruit are WaterSense labeled products, toilets, faucets, shower heads, all should be WaterSense labeled, as well as any irrigation systems that may be installed. And then, of course, dishwashers and clothes washers that are Energy Star certified and that meet the water factor requirements, which we'll go into a little bit more detail. So those are all relatively easy. These are things that can be bought right off the shelf and installed, and there really is no more effort needed into complying with these. Then we have items that perhaps require a little bit more effort in terms of documentation or verification. So our service pressure, the fact that you have to go out there and sort of look at the water line and take a gauge to it and just verify that the pressure is not anything higher than 60 psi. Then in terms of the products, we do ask that you provide documentation of the models that have been installed and just verification that they are WaterSense labeled. And a lot of that, we find that many verifiers come across the fact that documentation or manuals have not been saved. And so you can always go to our website to confirm whether a model has been labeled. And if it's not on our website, which is, it's not updated live, but rather every 3 months or so, you can always email us directly and we can certainly verify that for you. And then systems that are a little bit more complex, such as evaporative systems, water softeners, or drinking water systems, can also require a little bit more. Okay, and then this third guy, it's our hot water delivery system. And this one tends to be a little bit more challenging, given the nature of and the need for it to be designed and also built to spec, and requires a little bit more inclusion of different teams, as well as the plumbing technicians to be on board. So this one can get a little bit tricky, but we have found that builders that start to get acquainted with the program, after their first few homes, and if they really bring their plumbing staff and their plumbing subcontractors on board, could be something that is very successful and can really have a great impact on the home. Okay, so we've talked a little bit more about this. I won't go into detail because I know we're probably running a little bit out of time, and I did want to get a little bit into version 2.0. So again, this is just a low-hanging fruit, just a little bit more detail on how that's acquired. And so I had mentioned the water factor earlier, and that was in regards to anything that any appliances that are Energy Star certified. And so what we're looking for is essentially at what ratio the water factor is going to show the ratio of gallons per cycle that are being used versus the cubic feet or the volume, right, of the appliance itself. So if you look at this example, if a clothes washer uses 30 gallons per cycle and has a tub volume of 3.0 cubic feet, then the water factor is 10. So we set these water factors essentially because they are significant as to how the appliance is saving or how much water the appliance is saving. So even though these appliances are not WaterSense labeled, there is a measure in order for them to be energy efficient, they also have to be water efficient in order to achieve that. So that's why we look at the water factor. Again, these are the items that require some of the more verification or on-site verification. So we had talked about the service pressure, measuring the flow rates. So despite any of the faucets and shower heads being certified, we do ask for a flow rate test where you essentially place a bucket or bag that has been labeled to a specific volume and then time it. And make sure that the amount of time that it takes to fill that volume is in line with our requirements. And then system documentation and if any of these other systems are installed. So evaporating cooling systems, water softeners, and drinking water treatment systems. Like we talked about earlier, the hot water delivery system is one that has to be well coordinated with and planned with the builder. And so in looking at the different types of water distribution systems, deciding which one is the best and which type of plumbing lines would be used, and essentially how the system is designed in its layout. And of course, we find that the hot water system is a big one in terms of not only just water savings, so that end users or homeowners are not waiting for or wasting water when they're waiting for hot water, but also for energy, right? Because the amount of water that is heated is then decreased and naturally not wasted as well. Again, jumping back a little bit into energy and how energy is used and how we are tying it to water. So this is a little bit of pie chart of how we're using energy in the home. So we see that we're at 41% for space heating, 8% air conditioning, 20% for water heating, and about 31%, right, for appliances. And then this is actually a really cool comparison that we have here. So the pie graph on the left is from 1978, and then the pie graph from the right is from 2005. And what we see here is that space heating has really improved. We don't use as much energy anymore for space heating as we used to in 1978. And of course, we can attribute that to all the progress and technology that has been applied in the energy industry, right? Insulation and more efficient just mechanical systems overall. We also see that air conditioning, obviously, because now we just use more air conditioning than before. But when we look at water heating, we see that it's actually increased. And so, why haven't we made that much progress in terms of that? Why has that increased instead of decreased? So one thing that we start to look at is, well, what has happened, or how have our hot water distribution systems developed? So essentially just a basic distribution system. We have our water heater, we have a main trunk, and then we have some branches that are coming out to our fixtures. So we do have better water heaters, and we do have, in some ways, more efficient, right, materials. Then we move into the distribution, which has also improved to some extent. And the use, how have we changed the use? So WaterSense labeled products are one thing that we like to highlight. Of course, more efficient products, and user conservation, just some mindfulness from the end user of the way that we use water. Some of these are also components that are looked into the HERS index, which is the energy index. And so we just like to highlight the fact that the energy folds are also looking into how, some of the aspects of the hot water distribution system are behaving in terms of energy. And so we look at the system, which is pretty basic. And here we just want to highlight sort of what the problem has been and why we haven't made too much progress. So here we see 1.67 gallons that are wasted, 20 seconds wait time, right? And so we have a relatively small home, again, with a pretty classic distribution system. But then what have we done? All we've really done is taken this old system and basically stretched it out into our new home so that we get water everywhere we need it. But it doesn't mean that it's more efficient. It just means that it's an older system that has been expanded. And so how can we possibly expect for despite any of the more efficient fixtures or other additional components of the system to make it more efficient if we really haven't changed the layout of the system at all, right? We haven't rethought of how it's being designed. So that's one of the big components that we have under version 1.2 is looking at hot water and how it's going to be installed within the home. So our requirement reads that the system should not store more than half a gallon of water between the hot water source and any hot water fixture. And so the way that we test this is that we have to see at least a 10-degree temperature rise before we have 0.6 gallons of water out. So this is the test that I was talking about, where we essentially place a bucket under the faucet or the shower head. And along with a thermometer, we measure the amount of water that is being discharged, and how long does it take, right, for this temperature change to happen. In recirculation systems, they must be demand initiated. So push button or motion sensor is what's required. Another tool that we offer in terms of hot water distribution systems is this plumbing tool, where you can come in and essentially tell the system the type of details about the trunk, the branch, the twigs, and this will essentially help you in the sizing of your system, and so making it more efficient. We do find that the plumbing fixtures that are WaterSense labeled are more efficient. Despite their efficiency out of the box, they are more efficient when they are installed with systems that are more modern and are appropriate and have the correct piping sizing. And now moving on to the outdoors. So for the outdoors, we do want to allow for flexibility of plant types and sort of aesthetical appearances, but there are restrictions in terms of the type of planting, mulching that's required, and then as well as the requirement for an irrigation professional to come to certify the system. And then if there are irrigation systems installed, then the type of irrigation system and how that's behaving. So some of the easier or low-hanging fruit items in our outdoor requirements are the slopes of the landscape, mulching, which is relatively simple. Pools and spa, we do require that they have pool covers, and any ornamental or decorative systems, we do require that they have some sort of function. So whether it's to, that they have to have recirculating water, but also that they either house some wildlife or that have some other secondary benefit. Okay, items that require some documentation would be our irrigation system with coordination with an irrigation professional. So this is where the irrigation professionals come into play, and we ask that they design and verify the irrigation system and also the landscaping. So here in a few slides, we're going to show you the water budget tool. And so that's one tool that the irrigation professionals will use to verify that the landscaping has been installed and built in accordance to what was designed. Outdoor irrigation requirements. So irrigation, though I have been speaking a lot about irrigation systems, it is actually not required. Systems have to be designed or installed by a certified irrigation professional. The system has to be audited by a certified irrigation professional. And if there is a irrigation system installed, then a weather-based irrigation controller should be WaterSense labeled. Verify that there are no leaks. So again, this goes along the lines with the leaks that we had mentioned for the indoors as well, and then only allows fixed rate areas on turf grass. So that's another restriction. For identifying irrigation professionals, we do have a database where irrigation professionals that have been certified through our PCMO programs are listed on our website. And so folks can come in here to identify any professionals in their area, and you can do it through zip code and then do it based on a radius, a distance radius. And then you have different options of the type of certification that you would be needing, the type of project that you're working on, and then, of course, available for hire or not. Some of the folks that may be listed here that are not available for hire could be folks that have been certified, but perhaps work for a jurisdiction. And so they're really, the way that we have seen that pan out is that folks may reach out to them more for reference or just to bounce off or clarify some requirement questions. So the water budget tool, which I had mentioned earlier, it's a pass-fail measure of whether the home's landscape meets the requirement or not. It's also a pretty simple way to measure the efficiency of the landscape. It helps the builders consider which landscape and which type of irrigation design would fit best to their project. And it really rewards decisions that will translate to measurable water savings for the homeowners. What the tool does not do is that it's not a full feature landscape design tool. So it doesn't get into like the very design focused details of landscape designing. And it's not a predictive model. So it doesn't tell you, it doesn't intend to predict how much water a landscape will use. But rather based on historical rainfall and ET data, what is it that that the tool believes will result in an efficient landscape design. These are screenshots of the water budget tool. So this is what it, this is actually a caveat. So this is what it used to look like. And this is sort of a parenthesis here in the presentation. We used to have a this interface on our website. Unfortunately, the system that it was, or the platform that it was based on has been outdated and was not repurchased by the agency. And so we no longer house the tool in this format, but we do have an Excel sheet that essentially was what was in the background of this tool. So you can still run the same calculations. It just doesn't look this pretty, let's say. But essentially what you do is you come in here, you tell it, what you're using the tool for, whether it's a development, where you have various landscapes, or if it's just a single site. Whether you're going to have an irrigation system or not, the location where the project is going to be done. And this is essentially to pull up all the ET and rainfall data, and then of course the square footage. Once it takes you to step 2, it's going to ask you to break down that landscape area. So total square footage should add up to that, total number that you entered in the front. And then you have the opportunity here to break it down into what the typology, right, that you're going to have. So whether you're going to have turf grass or ground covers or trees or shrubs, you're going to put that in here. You're going to tell it what type of water demand each of those typologies would have, and then what type of irrigation would be covering that area. And so right here at the bottom, the tool will tell you, well, you've reached you're over your max, or you're still haven't accounted for part of your area. And then it will provide you with a water allowance, which is in gallons per month, versus a total water requirement for the site, also in gallons per month. And then the amount that would be allowed. So in this case, we see that this site is using less water, right, than is actually being allowed. And then this is just a screenshot of completing so in the previous, we only had accounted for 3,000 square feet. And here we have 5,000, so this is showing up as a 0. And finally, we see that that 1,900 gallons is still under what we would be allowed. And so if you're under or you're right at the allowance, it takes you to step 3, where it tells you, okay, you have pass the requirement, and your landscape can be designed in the way that you have provided the input. And this is essentially the tool or the report that you would provide your irrigation professional for them to confirm that the landscape has indeed been designed and installed in the manner that has been input into the tool. Okay, so then to finalize our requirements for version 1.2, we do have a component for homeowner education or building management education. And essentially we just ask that there's paperwork and there's essentially a trail so that homeowners and building managers know what it has been installed in the building, how to manage it, how to operate it, how to maintain it, right? There's really, there's enough evidence that no matter how well some of these efficient homes, both in energy and in water, are built and designed, if they are not sustainable long-term, then the impact is very minimal. So this is another requirement in our certification. So with that, I'll go ahead and jump into version 2.0, which is, like I said, the latest version of the program, and really sort of a rehaul of what we had just reviewed. So just for clarification, version 1.2 is still very much alive. The homes that are being certified as we speak are still being certified under 1.2. And they will continue to be so for the remainder of this year. And given that we're towards the end of the year, I would almost dare to say that it's probably going to roll into next year as well. Version 2.0, the final draft has been published. However, this version is still under the pilot phase. Under this version, we bring on board what we're referring to as HCOs, which are Home Certification Organizations, and ResNet is our first one. And if anyone is familiar with ResNet, they have just rolled out their water rating score, which is HERS H2O. And so we are working with them and rolling out this version 2.0, which provides a little bit more flexibility. And so the need for us to move into version 2.0 was that we are finding, since we're still working with 1.2, is that it wasn't as regionally diverse as we needed it to be. Some of the restrictions, especially in the outdoor arena, were a little bit challenging for some folks to achieve, and just didn't provide the flexibility that we wanted to see at a national scale. So for the technical requirements, we have a very short checklist, which we'll see here in a second, plus a 30% efficiency target. So essentially, we're asking homes to have WaterSense labeled products installed, and then based on that HCO, which in this case, we are working with ResNet now, is that under their program, they have to demonstrate at least a 30% efficiency target. That means that they can use any sort of strategy to get there, as long as they are WaterSense labeled products installed, that there are no leaks throughout the building. And then, like I mentioned, this new version has this component of HCOs, which means that we work through the home certification organizations to label the homes. So here is the checklist, which, as you see, this is it. It's not even one page. It's just very, very simple, much more very simplified version of our 1.2 checklist. So essentially, leaks are a big component, no leaks throughout the home, both indoors and outdoors. And then that all the fixtures that are installed indoors are WaterSense labeled. And so the big question that we have gotten with 1.2 is, well, why aren't we looking at outdoors? And essentially the short answer to that is that homes will not be able to achieve that 30% efficiency target if they don't target the outdoors. What we are allowing here is that home builders can now decide on their own where they need to save the most water, right? If you are in a region that is arid and is dry, then you probably, your highest outdoor water use is probably outdoors, and so that's where you would focus. But if you're in the Northeast, where the tables turn, then you can focus your water efficiency indoors. It's the same thing with hot water distribution. While we continue to promote and really highlight how efficient hot water delivery systems can be, and this is a big component that would help you achieve that 30% efficiency target that we are requiring, it is no longer mandated that people design in this manner. What we are finding, though, is that systems like Hearst H2O have included and have sort of adopted some of these practices into their efficiency standards. And so we see that they, even though WaterSense is not requiring it, we see that programs are moving towards that goal. I know we are getting tight on time, so I'm just going to kind of just breeze through these. So here again, just a comparison of different regions of the country and the way that outdoor and indoor water compare. So we're looking at Duluth, Minnesota. We see that just 21% of the water is used outdoors versus 79% indoors. When we move over to Phoenix, Arizona, we see that it's the other way around, right? 79 outdoors and 21% outdoors. Indoors. And so this is the flexibility that we needed to have in our program that we feel that will be achieved with version 2.0. So what this means for the building industry is that the hot water distribution requirement is no longer a mandate. We don't have to use the WaterSense budget tool, which is still, of course, available and can be used as a reference tool, but it's not mandatory. There's no longer also a mandate for irrigation professionals. Again, that's something that would fall onto the HCOs if they want to require it. And the providership is no longer required as well, which is part of our previous or our current certification structure. This is an example. So we wanted to also present an example of some of the questions that we have gotten in terms of version 2.0 as well. What happens to the states like California or Denver who have already adopted plumbing codes that make them more efficient than the rest of the country? And so we just wanted to kind of run a scenario where we are trying to certify a home under the version 2.0, which requires a 30% efficiency rate. So we have a home in California, a pretty typical home, 10,000 square feet, EPAC level plumbing products, which are standard, DOE standard level appliances, and typical landscape. So this type of home usually uses 165,000 gallons per year. If we start to then add sort of protocols to make it more efficient, we see that if we do a leak detection, it goes a little bit under the 165, so now we're saving 3%. We take that same home and we apply the California compliant appliances and California minimum requirements for the landscaping irrigation, and that takes us now down to 139, but that's only at 16% below, right? The required 30% efficiency. So it's not until we start to really push the envelope and install the WaterSense plumbing products, along with the leak detection and the Energy Star appliances, and some other water efficient features that we start to achieve that 30%. So really the purpose of this example is to showcase that even in states like California, like Denver, where plumbing codes are a little bit more stringent, they're still not achieving that 30%, meaning that we would still, the WaterSense program would still be very much relevant, even in those states that tend to be a little bit more efficient. Here are just some marketing tools that we wanted to showcase for the builders, that are acquainted with our program and that want to promote more water efficiency in their projects. And we did want to highlight a little bit for those folks that work in multifamily buildings that are 4 stories or higher. There is a water score feature that is managed through Portfolio Manager that we wanted to bring to your attention. And essentially, it's a benchmark from 1 to 100. That is used. This is only available for multifamily buildings, and it's used to essentially gauge water. Right? Where do buildings? How are your buildings behaving and performing in comparison to other multifamily homes? And so, one cool thing about this Portfolio Manager feature is that we are there isn't that much data out there, and so we're being able to collect data at this scale of how water is being used in large multifamily settings. You can get more information about this. This is under the Energy Star program, so we're not running it through WaterSense, but you can definitely get more information from their website and more insight into how you can participate in that program. And if you have any of your other buildings that are already in Portfolio Manager, inputting your water data is relatively simple. If you need more information about our program, inspection and verification guidance and inspection list, any guides for irrigation audits or the audit checklist or any sampling protocol, be sure to reach out to us. You can always reach us directly or reach us through Hack. I'm sure they would be more than willing to put us in contact. And with that, I have ended. So we welcome any questions that anyone may have.
Wow, Olga, that was some fantastic information. I was seriously taking notes the entire time. And so, as Olga said, we are at the point now where we're going to move into the Q&A session. We do have a few questions in the Q&A box, and there's also one that's been entered into the chat box. And so we'll quickly jump off into those so that we can try and answer as many of those before we get to the top of the hour. Any questions that don't get answered during the session before we reach the top of the hour, we'll forward those to Olga so that she can respond, and we'll also include those questions along with the presentation and the recording on HAC's website. So let's go ahead and move to the first question that's there in the chat box, Olga, and it's from Christina. How can existing homes change to water?
Yes, thank you, Christina. That's actually a great question and one that we really have advocated for. So under our current certification of 1.2, it is possible. However, the biggest challenge there, again, is the hot water distribution system, because it would require a big renovation of the house, right? If you have to go in and change your plumbing lines and things of that nature, it's really, it could be a big pull. So that would be, so it's possible just as long as you, achieve all of the requirements on the checklist. That could do, I do have to highlight, the fact that the hot water distribution system requirement could be very costly and challenging for an existing home. However, for if you wanted to do it under version 2.0, which is one of the things that we really like, that would be much more feasible, I think, for an existing home, because you can pick and choose where it is that you can have the largest impact, and B, essentially analyze what your return on investment would be into various strategies. So yeah, I think under either of the versions it would be possible, but now you've got options, which is great. I hope that answers your question.
All right. I was just talking. I was solving all the problems of the world on mute, Olga, so forgive me for that. There is a question that's come in under Q&A, and what they ask is, how do nonprofit groups or developers, builders, best demonstrate WaterSense certification?
Developers, that's an awesome question, and it could probably take me to a black hole. But what I have found, or what we have found, is when we work with jurisdictions, we have seen great advocates of water efficiency, through developers, and essentially coming to their jurisdictions and talking about, water rights and access to land, right? If they're with trade-offs on water efficiency and water efficient products, or projects that aim to be water efficient. So if you are a jurisdiction where you know that water use is sort of in high demand, or that the jurisdiction is looking to become more efficient, and that they have great conservation goals. I have seen that builders have really leveraged that in going to their local leaders and essentially saying, we're developers, we're here to promote sustainability, promote resiliency, and we would like to do this. And that's part of doing this is doing it through water efficiency and programs like WaterSense. We have seen that to be, very successful. And one great example is the city of Fort Collins in Denver. I think developers have really been able to leverage that, and not just with WaterSense, but with other efficiency programs. Yeah, jurisdictions are listening. So yeah, I think that's one way.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Olga, for that answer. What if there are no irrigation professionals near me? Can we still be certified?
That's a question that we get often, because some of our or most of our professionals tend to be in rather dense areas, and so sometimes builders who are working in more rural areas may not have access to many professionals. So we do provide waivers in situations where we see that it's just not logistically possible to have a professional come to your site, and we do that on a case-by-case basis. So if you do come across that sort of issue, please go ahead and reach out, and we will certainly work with you. Mm-hmm.
All right, perfect. There's another question that's come in via the Q&A, and it asks, does WaterSense work in conjunction with Energy Star?
We do, and I hesitated there for a minute because even though at the EPA level we are two independent programs, when we start working with organizations such as ResNet, who provides energy ratings, they have really leveraged the sisterhood, for lack of a better word, of the three programs, along with Indoor Air Plus. And so what we, as the three programs, have really worked hard at doing is streamlining the process for verifiers and raters on the ground, so that when builders are trying to obtain these three certifications, that process is pretty seamless on the site. So yes, we do try to make the process as seamless as possible. However, the certification processes are independent of each other and do have to be done independently.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much for that, Olga. We are at the top of the hour, folks. Continue to submit your questions either via the chat or the Q&A, but at this point we're going to wrap up with a huge thanks to Olga for the wealth of information that she shared today, as well as to each of you for your time and participation during today's webinar.